Hello, everyone, and welcome to this session today on role centers. Presenting to us today is Holly Kutel, and she is from Innovia Consulting. And before I pass it over to Holly, I would like to remind you that this session is being recorded and it will be posted to our on-demand webinar library later this week for you to review and share with anyone. And if you have any questions, we just ask that you do type them into the questions box. We will have a Q&A at the end of the presentation. And so now I'll pass it over to Holly to kick off our presentation.
Thank you, Angie. I appreciate that. I am so excited, you guys. Thank you for attending. This is my inaugural webinar for Innovia Consulting. I'm used to doing this within the NAVUG user group. And so this is my first opportunity as an employee with Innovia to present to you. So thank you for joining me today. Here's my contact information. So if anything that we talk about you'd like more information on, or you'd like to chat with me about, please do feel free to use my information and email me or give me a call, and I'm glad to help you out or share with you in any way that I can. So let's jump right into role centers. So in 2009, Microsoft decided to change the makeup and the architecture of our nav that we know, and now being called Business Central. And so it used to be that you did not have a role center. You came in and you had to click around and get through all the different departments and areas. And sometimes it could take you quite a while. And they decided then that in 2009, they were going to change from what we call Classic Client over to what we now call the Role Center or Role Tailor Client. And in doing that, they created this front page that was like a dashboard or a center for you to gather all the things that you do within your job. And so the role center was created, and it was a home page for a profile or a role that would contain all the tasks and activities that you would do within your area or department within your business day. Easy access, so you could click around, get to what you need to, and not have all that extra time wasted on all these other things. It provided access and information for you as you would perform your daily tasks. So around that, the idea was to increase productivity, just like cleaning your desk off and getting things organized so that the things you need are readily available on your desktop. The same thing in your ERP system. It now had a role center that was going to organize those things for you the same way. With the role center became the creation of the profile. And so profiles are what are used to set up the role center to be around your department or your area of work or expertise. And so Microsoft took a look at the ERP, the different departments, the different areas, the different job duties that are out there in the world that most of us have in our business lives. And it said, here is a list of roles or profiles that different companies would have. Maybe it's purchasing, maybe it's sales, maybe it's a warehouse clerk, maybe it's shipping just all alone by itself as one piece of the warehouse. Maybe it's a manufacturer or a job center. So it created these profiles and it added all the different items that are inside that ERP that it felt would probably be used within that role. These are the tasks, these are the reports, these are the activities and pages that this job, a person running this area would use. And so it set up the profiles in that manner so that they would be readily available for you to use. And you could just select that profile for a user and assign it to them. And when they open up their nav, there it was, their role center page, front and center, with all this information that they were going to need and use. All of that is a great addition to our ERP. Helps with productivity, as I said, and those different job roles that we have. The problem is Microsoft set it up so that it's got everything you would possibly use in that job area. And that might not be so in your particular company. It also may be that your company is a little smaller, and so maybe you wear two hats. And so some of what you do is not on that in particular role, it would be on a different role. So the idea of the role center is that it's customizable, and that is a great thing because using those profiles and role centers, you can customize them so that they do have that productivity that you need and the real estate available, the items that you're going to use, those tasks, those activities, those pages are going to be there readily available without having to click through a ton of stuff to find them. And so the two ways that we can do that are by configuring and personalizing. So the first one, configurations, those have to be performed by an administrator, someone who has that super user availability. And personalizations can be done by anybody. You could set that up so everyone who's a user and logs in can customize their role center and their pages the way they would like to see them. So with the configuration, again, this is being performed by the administrator, and the administrator would do this using a configuration mode that I'll show you that information a little bit later in our talk, but they would use that for an entire department or area. Now, this could be a department head, this could be a nav administrator. My suggestion in a company that's a pretty decent size is to have an admin, sub-admin in each department. So it's not necessarily going to be your department head that would do this or take care of the nav usage in a department, but finding that super user, someone who's got a little bit of passion and love for the ERP in each department, and assign them as your sub-admin in that department. And then they're the ones who would do these configurations for their department and finding what works for them. And then also those same people would be the ones that later you will use for testing when you're testing different applications or ISPs that you're adding, areas that you need to go in and test. They would be your key people to test and then train their department. So within that configuration, they would look at a role, decide which one fits best for their group, and then configure it so that it's set up how they would like it to be for everyone on that team. Now, once they've done that, they roll that out to their team, and they can have the team use it the way it is and allow absolutely no changes to it at all. Or they can click a button off that says they're allowed to, and allows them then to also do some additional personalizing after they've received that role. Either way is fine. It's just the way your company decides it should be. If your company says everybody in purchasing must use this role the way it's configured, then you check the box that says no other personalizations are allowed to be done here. Now, if you do allow those personalizations, those can be done by every user. And as long as that button's not checked that disallows that, they could go in and personalize their role center and tailor it to what works for them, getting all of that noise out of the space so that all they see are the things that they actually use and do. So those personalizations can be done on a one-on-one basis. They do not show up on anybody else's role centers or screens, only on that user's login. And those personalizations can be deleted by the administrator. So once they're done, you can go back and change them or delete any personalizations that you feel should not be there. As a manager of an ERP, you're also going to be able to manage your profiles by creating new ones. So you could go in and create a brand new profile that has nothing already set for it, deciding what it should be on your own. You can copy an existing one and modify it. And you can also export and import profiles from company to company. So if you have multi-companies and you've created one in one company, you can export it out and then use it again in another company and import it right into that company and use it for that group of people as well. So 3 different ways that you can manage and manipulate the profiles within the ERP. Managing those personalizations, as I said, you can disable personalizations for a profile. So you just go in and find those profile that you want to take care of disabling personalizations. And as you go down on that list and you open up the card, it will have a little checkbox right on it that says disable personalizations. You would check that box and then say okay. And then on that in particular profile, no one will be able to make changes to it going forward. That could be done on the out-of-box ones as well as the ones that you create on your own. You can also clear personalizations out as you're going along. So if a user does a little bit too much personalizing and needs them to be removed, you could just go in and delete that personalization page, or you could go to a user personalization card and you'll get a menu of all the different personalizations that they have done, and you can pick and choose what you would like to delete from there. Now that is a handy tool because there are times when they somehow manage to click something in the wrong order at the wrong time, and all of a sudden when they go to a certain page or location, they crash. And many times you'll find that that crashing comes from a personalization that got locked in as they were doing something. And so if you go to the user personalization card, find anything that they've done as a personalization, let's say it was a sales order, on sales order, and delete those personalizations to sales orders. Lo and behold, they'll be able to get back in and open sales order again and not crash. So a good place to go and look for that if you're seeing where your users are coming to you telling you all of a sudden they're crashing. This could quite possibly be where it's at, and it's just a simply going into that user personalization card and deleting some of those personalizations from the area that they're crashing, and they'll be back up and running. So as I promised, here is the outline of how to use the configuration mode in Dynamics Nav. As I said, you have to be an administrator, and the first thing you have to do is create a profile that you made. You cannot use an existing profile. You must create it yourself, and it has to be one that you've created and are the owner of. So I can't create a new profile and then someone else who's on the call go in and do configuration for it. It won't allow you. You have to be the creator. So I would create a new profile, which we will look at how to do that. And then I would open it up, running the command prompt and following these instructions, adding in my profile name of the one I created, and do all the changes I want and save it, and then roll that out. And you'll have a new one with your configuration set up on it. And again, if you check the box, they can't make additional changes to it. If you leave the box unchecked, they will still be able to make some personalizations on top of what you've rolled out for them to use. A great use for this would be even to do, if you have new employee onboarding, you can set up a new employee onboarding role that has the things that you want them to be able to use and utilize during that training time in your test system. And then you could change their role over to what department they'll be in once they move over to that. But it keeps them only going into certain areas and seeing certain things as they're being onboarded to your ERP. Just another thing I suggest is that when you onboard someone to your ERP, that you do it in test and not in live. Another thing you can do is to create a shortcut on your desktop. This was very handy for me on the client side as a CIO. I would jump into every different role that we used within our company to assist and help people with issues they were having or look at things with them. And so not having to continue to change my profile each time I needed to do that, I created shortcuts. So you can set yourself up as a sales manager, a purchaser, the different areas, and then you just create a shortcut on your desktop when you're in that role. And then you open it up in under the preferences, and at the end of the target, you would just add the dash profile and the profile that you are saving and click OK, and it will save it to your desktop. And you could do that for as many profiles as you like, and you'll have a bunch of little icons on your desktop for all those different profile roles. So you can just click and open when you're helping the warehouse, click and open when you're helping purchasing. You don't have to continually change over to their role to see it set up how they have it. And so just a nice additional feature. So next, what we're going to do is we're going to jump on and look at it live in Business Central on-prem. And we're going to look at how we assign the profiles with using our personalizations, where that default profile button is, so we can set default profile, and then customizing those role centers in the navigation pane, the ribbon, and the parts. And then after that, we'll have some time for some questions. Let's jump into Business Central on-prem. And so here we have Business Central on-premise, and I am set up as a sales order processor. And as you can see here in the main body part of the role center, it tells me what my role is. So to go in and change my role, I would use personalizations. You can type it up in your search bar and you'll see user personalizations. And then you'll see it brings me up a list, and whoever has been assigned a role would be in your list. So you can continue to add them in. And then here you'll see their user profile ID that's been assigned to them. You just click edit, and you can see here, we can click on the little three buttons, and now I can select from this list of different available profiles that I want to use for my user. And I can change that. So if I'm looking and I say there's not a role that I want to use in this in particular time, I can go out of here and I could go to profile now and bring up that list of profiles. And this is where I would go, make changes or create new or copy and make my own. If you're going to do configuration mode, as I said, you will have to copy this or create new. You cannot use one of the existing ones to do configuration. So what I would do is come in and find the one that most looks like what I'd like to use, gives me a good base to start with. I always have a tendency to go to IT Manager because that was my old profile. And then you just come up in your ribbon and you select Copy Profile. As you see, there's also Import and Export that we talked about. So if I create one and I want to export it out and use it in another database, I can do that. So I would just click Copy, and then I can give it a new ID name. So I'll make my new profile Holidays, and you can make it system or tenant, and we're going to leave it at system and say OK, and it will take a minute, and then you'll see that I have a new profile that will pop in here just above my Innovia employees. Now you see I have a new one called Holidays. I can edit that. So now I can say this is Holly's personal profile. You can give it whatever description you want. You can allow it to use the OneNote features, and choosing that by clicking here. You would just go into your OneNote and grab the link that is for your notebook and for your page that you would like it to be able to use. You'll see the OneNote appear on your ribbon on different pages, and then you'd be able to use that feature as well with this role center. I can make this the default role center. So if I want everybody to use it, I can set it to default, and then everyone who isn't assigned one would get that as their role center. That would be something like the Innovia employees that you see beneath. You might want to set something up like that. So as anyone comes in, they get a username and they just automatically get Innovia employees until we decide we want to assign them a different profile. I can also disable personalizations so that once I set this up, nobody can change it. We talked about the disabling personalizations, and that button is right there, and it will appear on every one of the profiles. Then we just say OK, and now this profile is ready to use. You can also set your default role center over here in the list just as easily. Right now I have it set here to the Innovia employees. If I want to change that and say it's going to be the order processor, we're always going to set them up as that. I can do edit list and change it over to that. And we can change it to that as the default role center. Same thing here, and you're disabling personalizations. I can select to disable from the list here. And it shows me also your use of OneNote on the side as well. So now I'm going to go in, back to my user personalizations, and I'm going to change myself And again, depending on the permissions you set, some users would be able to come in here and change their role center, and others would not be able to change it. They would need to go to an administrator or a department head to make those changes. And I can change now to the holidays profile. Once you change a profile, you do need to close your window and reopen it. And it will take a little while, but it will eventually appear here. I'm not sure the timing on it, but it takes a bit before it will come up. But eventually it will say holidays up here in the center of the role. And so there we have our new role center. And now we're ready to start doing some customization. They said you can see up top here, we've got a lot of noise up in our ribbon. And so maybe I'm only going to use 3 or 4 of these items. And so it's still a lot more consolidated from what it used to be, but I still have to look through and find what I want so I can make it so that it's just what I want and just what I need up here in my ribbon. Same thing with my navigation pane down here on the left. So we have our navigation pane here to the left, our ribbon at the top, and then our parts is what we call this center area here, and all are configurable on your role center. So let's start with the ribbon at the top. And so coming over to our little blue carrot is what I like to call him, and customize. And here you'll see again, customize the ribbon, which is at the top. The page is the body in the middle, and the navigation pane is to the left. And we're going to choose to customize our ribbon. And this flows just like the ribbon does. So you'll see the ones that are the furthest out, not indented. These are all the tabs at the top. You can see action, change setup, report selection, data compression, import iris, and reports. And they match right along here. I can add a tab. We'll make it my stuff. And so there I can add a tab and call it my stuff. And when I refresh, it will add it to the end of my list. Then you'll see the next thing will be the little gray areas underneath. And when I open this section, now you'll see the gray underneath, new documents, general, contacts, sales analysis, purchase analysis, and page, which is our refresh button is in there. And then when I open each of these, it will be what you see in the body. So here you'll see new documents is showing purchase orders. If I come over here on the actions to the left, this is what's available for me to add. And I can just highlight something and click and bring it over. And what's on the right is what is actually on my ribbon. So in new documents, I have purchase orders, and maybe I'm never going to do any new documents. So I don't need that on my screen. It's just in my way. I'm going to remove it. So I click remove, and off it will go. Now I'm into the general section, so I can open this up, and I see company information, which I look at a lot. And so I want to keep that. And you'll see down here, default icon size. If it's set like this, that means if your screen is big, it's going to make it big. And if its screen is small and it needs more space, it's going to shrink it down and make it a small icon. If I want to make sure it's always a large icon, I can set it to large. If not that important to me, I can always make it a small one. And again, I can always leave it at default and let it decide how much space it has and adjust accordingly. So company info is important to me. I use it all the time. I want it to always be a large icon. Manage style sheet, I don't use. I'm going to get rid of that. Migration overview, I don't use that. I'm going to get rid of it. Relocate attachments, sometimes I use that. So that one I'm going to make small. Doesn't need to be big, but I want to keep it there. Create a warehouse location. I do that almost as much as company info, so I'm going to move that up, and I'm going to make it large as well. Change log setup. I get calls all day to add and remove stuff from the change log. So again, I might call that the second best one and put that one there and make it large. Service troubleshooting. We don't have service, so we're going to get rid of that one. And then I go down the list and do the same. So here in contacts, create a contact. I like that. I'm going to leave it large. Create a contact from vendor and a contact from a bank account. Those ones I might use, but I don't use them quite as much, so I'm going to let them stay small. Task activities, that I use more often, so I'm going to make it big. So you just continue down and you could change them and move them how you like. We're just going to take sales analysis and remove those, and purchase analysis and remove those. And then we're going to move them down because we're going to put them on the second tab because we're not using them right now. Out of our way. So you can say the next tab is your change setup. And so maybe there's something on that tab. What I normally do is once I finish a tab is to close it. Then I can see my changes. And you can see how now I reduced all that noise that was there that I don't use. And now I only see the things that I do use on my screen. It also gave me more room. So now I would go to my second tab and see what's here, and then I can adjust that one as well. And if there's something on these tabs that I use all the time, I could go in and move it up to my actions tab. Same way, I would just go into here, customize, back to my ribbon, and now I want to look here, and let's say a couple of these setups, general ledger, sales and receivable, and purchasing, and I'm always adjusting them. So let's go in to our setups, and down to my change setups, and so we're going to look for them. There's my general ledger, and I'm going to move it up until I get it up here into my general section because I want it to be up front. Then I'm going to add it behind my other stuff I go to all the time. And I'm going to make it large. And the same thing I'm going to do with my sales. I'm going to move it up here. And right after my general ledger, I'm going to have those. And I'll leave those too small for now just so we can see the difference in the sizes. And so there you see we've added some other items to our list. Now you'll notice that my stuff went away that I created, and that's because I didn't put anything in it, and it said you didn't need it. So if you make a tab, you have to add a group to it. And then you can add into the group, or you could just add another group. Or you could take stuff off of one of the other lists and move it down into the group. And a roll, there we go. And so we added something down into our group. We can move that down, oops. I'm gonna take this one and move it down. And then say, okay. And now you can see it's moved my general ledger setup and my sales and receivable, purchasing and payables to my first tab on my ribbon. So now every time I want to utilize these, I don't have to come up here and click to a different tab and find them in the middle of all this stuff. Now I have them up here in the front where I like them. My refresh button is always to my right. That's where I like it. On every page that I use, I make sure it's there so I could go and click it. One of the things that I do regularly was to go in and remove the delete button from the ribbon where it appeared so that no one could delete posted documents from the system. Just by deleting that button, reduce that from happening 100-fold. So again, utilizing this to set up either personally for yourself or an individual user, or in configuration mode, you would do the exact same thing, but you would be doing it and then saving it and rolling that out as a profile for a department or for the whole company, depending on how you have it set up, or individual users. And here you'll see now the My Stuff button has stayed because we've added stuff to it. And it's put the things that we've added in on that My Stuff tab. And that's how we customize our ribbon. Next, we'll look at the same thing for our navigation pane. We come up, we go to Customize, we select the navigation pane, and the same thing you'll see here. The pane buttons to your left are the items below the menu suite at the bottom, and they match. To the right is the list of what is inside each of those buttons. So if we're on the Home tab, this is what appears at the top part of the list when we're on the Home tab. If we click on Job Queue, this is what will appear when we're clicked on the Job Queue, Workflow, and so on down the list. And the same thing goes here. You can customize these. The only one you cannot change is the top one, Roll Center. It will not be removed and it cannot be moved up or down. After that, you can move them around. So you can put them in the order that makes sense for you. If you never look at zip codes, you can remove it. You can come over here to other tabs and you can copy. So let's say I want to keep it on the Job Queue tab, but I would like to copy it as well and put it up on my Home tab. And so now I've gone over here and I've added it to the Home tab, Job Queue entries. So I have it on my Home tab as well. Same thing, you can come down and maybe Workflow User Groups. I want to have that just moved there so I can move it. It will take it off of that tab and I can move it to my Home tab. Now you see it's no longer on the Workflow tab. I go to my Home tab, you'll see that I now have the Workflow User Groups on my Home tab. So you can do the same thing here, setting them up so they make sense for you and are set up in a way that gives you the most real estate and has at the top of your page the items that you use the most and working your way down. Anytime that you do customize yourself, you can always restore defaults if you feel like you've overdone it or you've lost something you really need. All you have to do is click that button and it automatically goes back to how it was out of the box or when you started. And you would say, okay. The same thing goes here as it did for the ribbon. You can create your own department, so you can add your own. So I can create new. I get to pick an icon. We'll use the little gears. Oops, I didn't give it a name. We'll pick the gears. And name it Holly's Files, and you can see now it's added it there. And for it to show up, it's the same thing as it was on the other. We need to come up and we need to pick some stuff and say move to, and we're going to move it to Holly's Files. Or add. You can also add. So we can use an add and we can look down through the different areas and find something we'd like to add and say, okay, the same way. Add items into what we're doing. And then when we're done, we just say, okay. We can also move this up. Again, you can only go up this far. Home and Roll Center remain at the top always. And yes, it's going to flash to take effect. And now we should see our changes. And here we see the Holly files. So when we click on that, it's going to show us what we added to that. And any changes you make here, the same. I usually have mine pushed down like this because I can tell by my different icons where I'm at. And then I have lots of real estate to see the things that I actually use and click on as I'm working through my page. The last section is here in the center, and that is your parts. And you would do the same thing and come here, and you would go to this page, and it gives you the layout of the parts. And you see you have a left and a right side. You can move these left and right. You can move them up and down. And you can customize, you can add other items as well. Chart parts you can add. There's a section called generic parts where you can add some charts to your screen. They take a little bit of practice to get used to doing. If you'd like to do something on those, we can definitely set up time to do that. But for another day, but you would just add the blank part. You can add job queues here so that you can see what's in the job queues, other items. You say, okay, remove stuff that you don't use. And now when you come down, you can see you have a blank chart. And you go here and say customize. And then here's the charts that are available currently. You could pick something from here and add it in. And you'll get a chart. And the other place to go would be generic charts. And in here, you can build your own generic chart. So here's all those ones we saw on the list when I hit customize. You could take one that's here, and I would suggest that you make a copy of it to make your own versus customizing it and then not having it anymore. So you could do copy the chart and give it a new name. So you could say now it's Holly's balances. Let's put that down here. And now you have the same exact chart that you can customize and play with and change and manipulate, and you have not affected or ruined the original one. And then the same way, you would just open it up. And here you can start to make changes and adjust it, fill in filters, etc., to set up that chart. Then when you go back to your home screen, and leave the generic parts, we can come in here, customize, and now you'll see there's the chart that we just copied and started our own new little chart, and it'll pop in here as well. So that's something that you could do as well within the body of your role center. So the last thing I have to share is our sneak peek at our Business Central in the cloud. Let's take a look at Business Central in the cloud. And so here we see it looks different. It doesn't look exactly like the on-premise version. Where's our navigation pane and where's our ribbon? Well, guess what? They're there. They're just changed a little bit. So you see at the very top, this is now what we've normally had and called our navigation pane. Here's your main areas for your role center that you can see. And you can click and it drops down and you see all the different items that you have, purchasing. Depending on your role, you'll have different items. Here's your actions that would be up on your ribbon, things that you can do. Create a sales order. So they've shrunk it a little bit and made it a little bit more intuitive. And instead of having to click to tab 2, now it's right here on your front screen. You get these nice little welcomes. Excuse me. I always like to see my good afternoon, Holly Cudel. Here's your activities, things that are going on. Next are your cues for your department. Some charts. Now we've got your Power BI in here, some insights, your items, so you can set these up to show the items you're interested in and want to keep an eye on. Maybe they're your big customers' items, so you want to make sure that we aren't running low. Reports that you're having running on a job queue or that, you could have them populate in here so you can click and open and see them. And so that's where your role center is. Now, how do I customize my role center in Business Central in the cloud? And it is a little bit different. So right now you'll see I'm in the sandbox version. I am not in a production or a live database. It runs the same in live with the exception of one thing, and that's design, and we'll talk about that. But so now you come over here to this little button, and you'll see at the bottom My Settings. And this is where you'll pick your role. Come out and you can see they're all still here. Here's my IT manager. Pick your company. What is your work date? All the same stuff we've always had is in here. Say OK. And now we're set up. And we'll be the IT manager. Now, if I want to customize it, and this is important when you move to the cloud with Business Central, because you're going to get to a page like your customers, and you are not going to be able to move your columns or find extra ones because they're static. You have to customize. And so to do that, we go to Personalize. And when you select Personalize, you'll get little red circles around everything, what you can change and do. So here I can say, I want to move this. And now you can move it over to this side. I can select it down. I can switch them around. I can hide it if I don't want to see it. No, it doesn't like me to do that. We won't see those periods then. So you can see I can move things around as I'm personalizing the different things on this screen. I can select more, and here's where it'll allow you to add fields. And if there's fields that you can add or things you've removed, so if I remove the activities completely, you'll see it will pop. Normally it will pop over there, but it didn't. Clear that one, say yes. There, now it's back. Hide. You see as I'm hiding them, they're moving them over to the side, and anything that's over here in fields that are available, I can drag and bring back over into the screen that I want to use. Maybe. It doesn't want to let me. It should let me bring it back, but for some reason it's not. Then when I'm done personalizing, all you do is say done, and it saves your changes the same way we did in Business Central on-prem. Now, like I said, in the sandbox, there is a difference, and that would be where you would do customizations. That would be like the configurator mode. And so you would come in here and click design. Very similar feature and feeling, gives you all the same information up here. Now it's purple instead of pink. But this would be done, and you would move and change things around how you would like to have them be. And then when you're done designing, you would say stop designing. But in this case, it's going to actually create an extension with those changes. You would give it a name, and then you would put your name in here as the publisher. So if someone had questions about the code and stuff that was created by the changes, they could come and ask you, and you would say save. And so this would be done as in the designer mode that's been rolled out. And again, you would have to have administrative rights to do those items as well and stuff. Same thing though, those personalizations, if you're on customer pages or lists, I'll show you this because it becomes a question. People say, I can't make this field bigger. It won't let me stretch my column. It won't let me move it. And they can't figure out how to do that. And so it's using that personalizations. Again, very simple. You go to personalize. See your little pink bar came up. And so now I want my name field to be bigger. Get my little arrow is stretched out. Now the name is bigger. I want to see my location code over here. My contact is more important to me and I want it before my freeze pane. I can also move my freeze pane. I can clear it and I can say I'm going to put my freeze pane over here. Get up there. Set my freeze pane, so now it's going to move it there. I can make all those adjustments here. I can select more, and again, I can pick fields, and it's going to show me additional fields and columns that I can show that aren't up here already. And so you can add those other fields that are available on this page. See if it'll let me this time. There we go. Reserve, put reserve over there. And so you can add, and the same thing when you take them away, it'll put them here and you could put them back in anytime you want. When you're done, you say, okay, done. And now it's kept those fields and it's left my spaces as big as I wanted them for going forward. And again, now that I've closed that out, I cannot make those adjustments anymore. I have to go back to that personalized mode to make those changes on a page, just like I did on the Role Center itself. And that's the end of our live demo. It'll take us back to our presentation and send it back to Angie and see if there were any questions.
Thank you, Holly. Yes, we do have a couple of questions. One question came through is that I have trouble managing role centers. So can you just kind of highlight, the importance of managing the role centers?
Sure, that's a great question and something that we do all struggle with. The first questions would be, how many employees do you have? How many departments? Is it something you can manage on your own? Spending time with each department. If you want to roll out a role center that we talked about and do configurations for each area, sitting down with them and getting a consensus of what they do and what they use and what works best, and having them be part of that project with you as you're managing those so that it is working for them and it is making them more productive, and putting those things in front of them that they really do use to reduce that stress and noise in their daily jobs and stuff, to roll those out are great opportunities. Definitely using configuration mode if you want to roll out a certain role to each area and have them use those. If you don't want them to do personalizations and you're finding that they're getting a little carried away, using that do not personalize button so that they aren't able to make any changes. So that is another great feature. The other side of managing it, like I said, is having some setup for testing and some setup for those new users during that training time and stuff to roll out to the baby users and get them started with the simple stuff before you add too much to their screens. And that, I hope that helps. If you have more questions around managing or want to talk about that on a one-on-one, let me know. I'm glad to sit down with you and review those things with you.
All right, great. Thank you for that. And then another question came through. The blue Q boxes show up under the Purchasing Role Center, but we use Production Planner because the planning worksheet is under this one. So how can I move the Qs from Purchasing to Production Planner?
Okay, the cues can be manipulated and moved and altered. It is part of development. So if you have a developer's license, you can do that in the background with some development experience. And I know a few admin that do that, and very well. They have some really cool cues that they've made themselves and stuff. But if you do not, that would be something you would need to reach out to your partner and have a developer on your team assist you with and get them moved over for you. But they can certainly do that and get them over to the role that you want to use them on.
All right, great. Well, that is all the questions that we have for today. Please feel free to contact us or contact Holly if you have any additional questions that you need to discuss one-on-one.
Awesome. Thank you, Angie. And definitely reach out. Let us know what you'd like to hear more about. If there's more with the role centers or something you saw that you'd like to go a little deeper on, shoot that over to us and we'll be glad to set something up, a follow-up webinar, or just a call with you to review with you what you'd like to see. Thank you, guys.
All right, thank you, Holly, for presenting, and to everyone on today's call, or if you're watching on demand, thank you for joining us. We do have a few more webinars coming soon. Tomorrow, February 27th, we have Jeff Pergolski from Innovia Consulting, and he will be presenting on Microsoft Flow, What's New? And we have Stacy Dose from Avalara presenting on the secrets to mastering the ever-changing sales tax landscape. That webinar will be on Tuesday, March 5th. And we do have Focus coming up in March in Houston, Texas. Focus is a 2-day deep dive training event to help you to get a deeper understanding of your Microsoft Dynamics Nav, Power BI, and Business Central systems. And to learn more about Focus and to get all the details for this conference, you can visit our conference page on our website, and that's innovia.com/conferences. So if you're interested, please register for that. And we have our annual customer conference coming up in April in the Wisconsin Dells. Contact your rep or visit our conference page where it will have all the details for our conference. We would love to have you attend. Register now. Hotel rooms are going fast. And thank you again for joining us. We look forward to seeing you again soon on another Innovia webinar. Have a great day, everyone.